how I found myself in a very alt-right RPG group. Alright, so some context. I'm a pretty big fan of Aurora 4X. If you don't know, it's an incredibly complex and in-depth 4X strategy game set in space where you can customize your ships down to each individual component, i.e., you can make your own engines, weapons, etc. to stick on your ships. A creator that I'm a fan of is advertising a role-playing series about this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. It kinda dies on arrival. But then the chosen DM for this invites me to another game which continues the legacy, so to say, with nobility and space battles. That one takes a pause, not really important to the story, and I get invited to another game. If you've heard of the game Terra Invicta, it's basically that. Aliens are invading Earth and are influencing various nations, and it's up to the players in the United Nations to stop them. This is the game that I wish to share. Now, this game had numerous problems mechanically. Mainly, the UN is given a ton of resources, trillions of dollars and resources to be precise. But everything costs like $100 or like 10 resources. And we as players are limited to like 4 infantry brigades between all of us, so we kind of have nothing to spend it on. Bad enough on its own, but it's not really horror just yet. We ended up starting in 2024, modern day. Dropped straight into the invasion of Ukraine and Mariupol to dislodge the Russians from the city. The Russians are, of course, being influenced by the aliens. We skirmish and kick them out. Cool. I made into the de facto commanding officer of the entire UN military, which sounds impressive, but remember, we're just infantry. And also, the DM insists that Jeeps are to be considered armored personnel carriers as they have armor and carry dudes. More on this classification stuff later. In comes the bomb. A literal bomb. Russia nukes Kyiv. Now, you might be wondering, oh man, so like, does this end up in some kind of world war? Any larger political impact? No. Nada. Zilch. The entire world just kind of ignores the situation. And I'm here thinking, that's a little weird. But I ignore it since the game starts opening up. At the time, I was guessing that the DM just wanted to end the tutorial with a literal bang. Next session. The literal fallout of the nuke. Kyiv is gone. Quite literally, the entire command and government structure of Ukraine just up and vaporizes. So we are left to pick up the pieces. Unfortunately, Ukraine is in literal pieces, fractured into several parts. Some support the UN, some support Russia, others support the Azov Battalion, which rebrands into the Azov Division. For those of you who don't know, the Azov Battalion are pretty closely linked with Nazis. In comes our moral dilemma. The leader of the Azov Division comes to our base and starts negotiations. The DM starts RPing with this leader saying stuff like, the Nazis are the only good thing to have happened to Ukraine. Where was X, Y, and Z when this and that happened? Nowhere. The Nazis gave us yada yada yada, you get it. In my mind, I was thinking, holy shit, what? I guess he's just role-playing. Now I've got 2 advisors. The medic of the group in charge of humanitarian efforts says the no-brain, hey, they're effing Nazis, we shouldn't be working with them. While my de facto XO is like, nah, we should help them. Of course, since the DM is basically ham-fisting me to help the literal Nazis, with the threat of having to fight a war on both sides by 2 numerically superior enemies, again, we only have 4 infantry battalions, I basically have to grin and be like, okay, we'll help you. So I'm left thinking that this was as wacky as things were going to get. The next 2 weeks are normal. I have to do a lot of setup since the game is really starting to open up. We get to research things, we get a higher unit count, we get more than just infantry. So of course, I get us some actual armor and whatnot. In comes Mr. Armor Expert, who writes up the formation template for an armored brigade. Except he didn't follow the templates we were given, so I had to tell him multiple times to edit it and everything. During which he insults me. All right, kind of weird you're insulting your commanding officer, but fine, I think to myself. He calls his formation an armored regiment. I called it an armored brigade. He gets pissed off and insists that it be called a regiment, as the 2 are very different according to him. I not only pull rank, at this point I'm a 3-star general and he's a goddamn colonel, and tell him that I am literally writing our doctrine from scratch, and I can call it whatever the hell I want. But I even link him to the US Department of Defense. He is basing his stuff off the US Army, where it literally says that armor is only called a regiment for historical reasons, and thus, armored regiments are literally just armored brigades. His response? Wow, For someone who thinks they know a lot, you sure know nothing. I'm just baffled at the insubordination, and I'm debating whether to court-martial his ass when out of left field, all of my other junior officers come out of the woodworks to call me a crybaby, and all sorts of shit. I talk about this stuff with my friends, and they're equally as confused as I am. It's then that I bother to read through the world events that are going on. Keep in mind that at this point I've been busy with classes, and I've had to spend literal hours setting up formations, budgets, officer assignments, research, etc. in my off time with my friends. And oh my god, there's a lot to unpack with this. Event 1. The Scandinavian countries unite and reform the Kalmar Union and do Viking stuff. Event 2. Portugal invades and annexes Brazil. Event 3. Aliens just vaporize the entire country of Australia. Event 4. Greece and Turkey unite to form the Byzantine Empire. A high schooler could have come up with something better, and the DM is a grown-ass adult living on their own. And if you think that was bad, it gets worse. Event 5. Ireland invades the UK to reclaim Northern Ireland. There is a dude in-game who, now that I'm looking back, I'm pretty sure supports the IRA. Event 6. Mexico joins hands with the aliens and invades the US. President Biden orders the military to stand down. In response, the US military starts a coup against Biden and instates Donald Trump as the new president. Yes, you heard that right. The US military performs a violent coup to instate a president with no election. It gets better. Oh, or worse, I guess. The US counterattacks and defeats Mexico. The result? Mexico becomes the 51st state of America. That's right. All of Mexico becomes the 51st state. Oh, and for shits and giggles, the US also invades Canada and makes that state number 52. State constitution, voting, the idea of a territory, Puerto Rico? Nope. At this point, I've realized just what I've gotten myself into. Everything became so clear all of a sudden. All the little flags and stuff clicked in quite possibly the most horrifying way possible. This isn't a role-playing game. It's a goddamn fan fiction for Trump, with some edgy alt history bullshit thrown in. My friends obviously advised me to get out, but I can't help but do one last thing. My character as the leader of the UN military came to be known as a hero and the father of the modern UN. So obviously, I'd have this guy go out with a bang. I write a manifesto where I basically say, I've given my all to defend humanity from this extraterrestrial threat. But upon looking at the state of the war and the things we've done as a species, I cannot help but wonder if these aliens are the good guys after all. My final words to the group of interesting individuals was an apology to the secretary, who will find my brain matter splattered all over the walls as my character deep throats a bullpup rifle. These people hate bullpup guns, but also definitively states that it is an armored brigade, not an armored regiment. Of course, I blocked every single one of these crazy mofos and immediately left any and all channels I shared with them. Like even now, 2 months later, I cannot believe that I managed to find myself embroiled in a group like this. What in the alt-right history is this? I actually really enjoy the idea of a modern-day campaign. One of my all-time favorites that I played was a Red Dawn-style GURPS game where we built ourselves as characters and wolverined all over the Red Devils that decided to invade. It was a blast. What it didn't have was my little insurgent group aligned with Nazis. Share some of your modern-day game stories with or without Nazis and tell me what you think in a comment down below. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content every week.